All right, everybody. All right, Nate Hagerty here, CEO of Tax Pro Marketer, and I've got Andy Frye, EA, here with me for our first in our series of our Spotlight series. Now, there's a lot of people on this who are listening to this who may not have heard of me before or really Andy, and so just real quickly, in case you haven't been exposed to us here at Tax Pro Marketer, I am the CEO of Tax Pro Marketer. I was the marketing director of a tax firm that grew from $50,000 a year in annual billings to just over 4.3 million in fee-based revenue alone in less than 10 years. Started Tax Pro Marketer back in 2007, and we have become the premier marketing agency for online marketing, in particular for independent tax and accounting firms, and we've been serving them since 2007. So, look, lots of things I can brag about, but the main thing I love bragging about is my team. There's actually 13 of us here at Tax Pro Marketer. We've got to update our photos, but we are certified partners with Digital Marketer, Infusionsoft, and we are Google Premier partners, which means we're the top 1% of all agencies and partners that Google works with to do SEO and ads. So enough about us. I do want to get Andy to start telling his story, because there's a reason why we started our Spotlight series with Andy. He has worked for Pronto since he was about 5 years old, stuffing envelopes for his dad, Kent Frye, who's now the majority owner. So it's a family business that was in fact started by Andy's grandpa back in 1965. Is that correct, Andy?
Yes, sir. That's it.
So you all have been going for, let me do quick math, 55 years. That's a beautiful, no, is that right? That's right. Yes, I was told there would be no math.
It 55 years. Right. I'm going to go with it unless they catch it on the recording and correct us. I think we need to go with that for now.
Now, Andy has personally prepared more than 10,000 tax returns, and he's becoming known in the industry organically because of his participation in a lot of like we did some webinars with Andy in the spring with all the COVID business and the huge scramble that everyone was doing to set up remote offices. And Andy's been a client of ours, and I've known him for a couple of years now, and I'd known that he had some resources for remote office training. He emailed in to me and my team and said, hey, I've got these resources. I'd love to offer these to your people. And I said, you know what? Forget about the resources. Why don't we put you on a webinar and let's talk about how you and your team have done this, because they've got 4 locations. Andy personally started 2 of them. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about this during the interview. One of the offices that I started actually didn't end up making it. So,
okay, well, that's a good thing to talk about. People love the failure stories too.
Yeah, it's one thing about running a multi-location business, which I'm sure we'll get into, is you learn a lot along the way. And some of those lessons, you got to eat some humble pie and and learn your lessons the real way. So I've kind of been down that the school of hard knocks, so to speak, and had some good success, and also learned some things along the way.
When I was running the marketing for our tax firm, we had 24 offices, but then we ended with 24 offices when I departed, but one of them was getting shut down, and that's just part of the deal. When the numbers don't hit, they don't hit, and it's you got to make sure that you are not just doing a charity, as much as we want to be doing charities this day and age, especially. But so we created Pronto Tax School, I think 4 years ago, initially as a way to train your own people. How many employees does your firm run during tax season?
This tax season, I believe we had 22. 22 team members across the 4 locations, and again, as I'm sure we'll talk about during the training. I mean, and you mentioned for your team, it really comes down to a lot of the great work that those people are doing with our clients.
Oh my gosh,
number one thing, and you get so grateful for that when you see get the feedback from clients that they really feel and know that you care about them, and your team members care about them. And especially this year has been such a mess for so many people, right? It just means so much more for clients to have somebody they trust and rely on. So really proud of our team members for being that for our clients.
You guys pivoted hard, and we saw your data, because we've been working with you since I think 2018. Is that right? maybe 17. I'm not exactly sure.
It's
I
tough,
should have
man,
gone
because
back.
all the years are kind of running together. But I mean, I know that, yeah, I know that when we didn't make it with a one office that I mentioned, we weren't working with you. Looking back, I kind of see, especially with some of the Google optimization that Christian does, to give him some credit on the part that he leads. I mean, driving traffic and leads to the locations. Gosh, I mean, that's so important, because the more that, you know, when we have the quality team members that we have, the more clients and potential clients that we talk to, the more clients that we end up having, because, you know, they realize that we want to take care of them and we're friendly and professional.
Well, I love that you want to talk us up, Andy. You don't need to do that, though. Let's kind of move away from that right now. I want to hear your story, and I know that a lot of people who are on this want to hear a little bit of your story, as well as what you're working on, how you and your family have built this practice that gives you the ability to work from across the country. Because Andy's practice is actually based in Los Angeles, but Andy and his family live in North Carolina, on the beaches of North Carolina right now. I hope that's okay for me to share, Andy.
Absolutely, man.
But I feel like that's a great benefit. And you did a lot of commuting, you know, when you could during tax season and whatnot, but you've been doing a lot of things remotely. And it's a pretty amazing thing that you can run a multi-location tax business remotely, take the time off that you need. But before we get into the origin story, what I want to do, what I like when I talk to tax professionals, especially when it's in the off season, because during busy season, we all know what we're working on. But I find that during the off season, this is where the money is actually made for tax and accounting professionals. When it's not as busy, when we're in the extension world, when we're in tax planning time, this is the prime opportunity to be working on our practices and on our businesses. And a lot of people don't take it, whether they're sipping margaritas by the pool or just wasting time with dragging out extension work and not really doing anything to prepare for the busy season that's to come. I want to know, what are you and your team working on like right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that our office locations run is we have a team leader in each office location, and depending on what that person's goals for their office, they have a lot of sway and say over what goes on for that particular office location. I think for us, a big thing right now is to keep in contact with our clients outside of tax season. And a big focus for us has been to go from being a what business, so this is where I do my taxes, they take care of my taxes, to a why business of,
yes,
you know, I go to these people because I trust them and they take care of me. And so I think with being active about correspondence, you know, the stuff that we've been trying to keep in touch and educate people about the different stimulus bills, you know, putting out education and staying in contact with people, that's really what we're trying to do, is go the rest of the way from, you know, from being a what business to a why business. And part of that as well right now that we're working on is, which I think probably is relevant to a lot of other people that are on the call, is doing a better job of segmenting our client list, you know, and be able to correspond with the right people in the right way.
yes.
And you know, there's some list segmentation stuff. Like, for instance, we have a lot of Spanish speaking clients. So, you know, which clients would prefer to speak Spanish or receive Spanish correspondence? Like, we haven't done the best job of segmenting our database on that type of thing. So just working on some kind of like nuts and bolts, and but also just trying to let people know that, you know, we actually care about what's going on with you, and you know, and we're experts who care about you. That's kind of our tagline.
I don't want to put you on the spot and embarrass you, Andy, and this maybe would embarrass us more than anything else, but you are aware that we provide all of our marketing in Spanish, right?
Well, that's the thing, is it's kind of like, I am a little bit embarrassed, you know. That's what I was going to ask you too at the beginning of the webinar. I'm like, is it okay if I just keep it real with everybody and you know, just let, like, we don't do everything. It's not like, I'm here to show you how to do everything perfectly. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things, honestly, that we could be doing that we're not doing. And that we want to do. So it's like, you know, it's kind of that balance, right, between being grateful for where you are, but also not being satisfied. And so a lot of the resources that you guys offer, as far as the Spanish language, also the tax problem resolution email sequences. Like we actually haven't been successfully deploying those. And so I'm a mix, Nate, between embarrassed, but also I'm like hopeful for the future because I can still do that. It's still in my power.
Because what you have been doing has been working. What we've been doing for you now, again, we can talk about that later on, but how are you doing that? What are you doing to move from the what to the why? You're talking about no longer being a commodity to your clients and becoming that cliche in our industry as a trusted advisor, right? What are you doing to actually accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is really to just define yourself differently, right? Because the interactions that we have with clients are, you mentioned the word organic, right? And it's like organically, it's already happening that clients have been expressing to us that you are the only person I trust with my finances, right? So especially in the Latino community, Southern California, like, and one of the things I was very passionate about, still am with our business is, that's been an underserved community that's also been, not provided in a lot of cases, trustworthy financial services. And actually, if you look at the subprime thing and all that, it's a lack of trust in a lot of cases. So, vast majority of Americans, correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody in our country is, they don't have a financial advisor, right? I mean, they don't have somebody that they're sitting down and talking about their money that actually cares about their money and wants them to keep more of it and make more of it. So it's just starting to think like, what am I actually doing for this person? I'm doing far beyond just filling out their forms, right? I'm the only person that has their financial best interests at heart, and communicating that to the team and saying like, what, other people may define us in a way of that we're just like tax preparers or whatever, but let's take a second and actually think about what you're doing for clients. And it's a sacred trust. It's actually something that you're making a big psychological impact for that person, that they actually have somebody in their community that they can rely on. And so, it starts really with just rethinking our role, and then communicating that to clients, right? And being able to say, we're here for you in those ways, and keeping in touch with them year round, Nate, has been a big part of, being able to do that.
Yeah, you were one of our most diligent clients to actually utilizing the email marketing service that we provide. And we've got some data that I'll share about that we see on our back end that we shared with you as well. But let's kind of back up very quickly, because you were not present at the birth, so to speak, because you weren't even alive in 1965, if I am not mistaken. So when, talk about the origin story and kind of the most recent iteration with you having some leadership and the multi-location component of it. Real briefly, tell the story of your business.
Yeah, so my grandfather had started our business back in the 60s, and we were one of the first companies that I know of actually nationwide to really focus on offering bilingual service. So we had Spanish and English in our locations, and we're able to serve the Latino community. We serve all communities as well, but we really had like a welcoming approach to that community throughout the years, and built up to office locations. And my dad has been running it as the majority owner for many, many years. And he's just done an amazing job of setting an example of, what kind of service that we're expected to deliver to clients. And so, yeah, we've been able to grow into, thousands of clients. We mainly work by referral. And I came into the business, you guys, in 2001 as kind of a, I always saw the potential of our business to expand. And so that was kind of my, I'm kind of like a little bit of a disruptive kind of person in the business a little bit. I also was like, there's always a balance of the third generation of the business. I'm third generation of, we're usually the ones that tank the business. That's usually, if you look at how many businesses are actually able to go.
Yeah, it's true.
The third generation, we always were like, he got out in front of himself. And so, I mean, like I said, I've learned a lot along the way in terms of like being able to learn from my dad, and he's very measured and, probably is a bit more on the conservative side than I am. So we've always had kind of a good yin and yang, in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw, my main contribution to the business was really to see the value of the education and training component, where
Mm-hmm.
I was always interested in building up our team members to be able to deliver a similar level of service as my dad did. So I would look at my dad and I would say, hey, if we could clone him, we'd be so what does that look like to take somebody that, we've hired a lot of people, you guys, out of like a retail environment, let's say. So we might hire somebody out of and train them from A to Z of how to actually become a white collar professional, and, even moving into like ownership, and just like moving up the ladder. So I think our training and advancement in that has been kind of my main contribution to our success today.
I want you to talk about that more in just a minute, but what I'm really interested in, because we did talk about this in leading up to this, is that the choice to move to a multi-location model, was that something that you brought to your dad and said, this is a methodology for expansion where we can penetrate different markets? That's question number one. And then question number two is demographic targeting for your business. I understand you work with a wide variety. So you've got some kind of quick tax return, easy form clients. Maybe that's a lot of your clients, but you also work with high-end clientele and business owners. So managing those three different demographics, I'm interested in how you all do that. So first, the multi-location component. I'd love one or two potholes that you crossed over with that. And then the mix of demographic targeting. I'm very interested in that, because that's something that a lot of our clients don't do a good job of. Once maybe they have got a high-end boutique firm and they want to work with the short form folks, and they become half pregnant with it, and it's not a good setup. But then a lot of our clients maybe they're coming from the short form world and they're wanting to move into the higher level, value pricing and working with higher level clientele. But you guys have seemed to find a way to do both well. So I'm interested in that component too. So first, talk to me about multi-location and how that happened.
Yeah, so we were actually multi-location for many, many years,
You were,
and frankly,
okay.
yeah, in decades. So before I was ever involved, we had multiple locations that my dad and my uncle Mark were running and doing a great job on. And so when I came into the business, I stepped into our Monrovia office location, and we were able to kind of quadruple the sales there and really get that office going as our one of our main hubs. And then at that point, I was living, in LA, the traffic is so much that like I was driving, super far, and I lived on the west side. So I was like, okay, I want to start a new office on the west side of LA, which is quite a bit different than the east side. And so in our West LA office, which I started from scratch, and we built that up to over 1,000 clients within 3 years. And that was kind of my, proof that I could lead and expand a new office. We actually found more of a niche among the entrepreneurs and kind of the Silicon Beach, the tech startups, and just a very different, client group. And I think it's, we have like neighborhood focused shops. So like, and especially with different team leaders, right, is like, Miguel has been our team leader in East LA for a long, long time. And he does a fantastic job of taking care of the clients that are in that office location. And so he does things, differently than I would doing things in West LA, but still with the same focus on like, how do I create an experience for this client that is great for them, And so that was kind of our standard link. And we really handled it, you guys, the different, the different client groups, from like a business client, let's say, to more of a kind of, a tax return that will take less than 30 minutes to prepare. Among our team members. So like team members that are more focused on, traditional tax prep, versus somebody that is more like an advisor role for a business client. And we started kind of segmenting out like, okay, you're going to mainly work with these kind of clients. And while the newer people are going to work with this, and removing you guys from, like, the biggest thing for me, especially with moving and with multi-location, is clients have to feel that they're going to a place and not to a person. That to me is the biggest thing. Like, they have to feel like, if I go to this person, it's not going to be the same as this person, right? Everybody's different, every preparer is different, but I'm going to get the same cultural experience and the same quality, basically, of experience. And so that is the biggest thing from multi-location that was a huge challenge, especially with having those different client groups. You know, and that was definitely a big challenge, and it's still something that we work on, you know, all the time.
So from what I know from diving into your list a little bit, you've got about like 200 or so small business clients that are a little under 200, I think, something like that. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's
Like
actually not right, because, again, you know, on the list segmentation side, right, like the clients that we even have in your guys' database is like not even close to like what we actually have, because like we haven't done a good enough job of collecting people's emails. And so that's what I said about kind of being able to keep it real. But we probably have like, you know, several thousand business clients, and then, you know, probably, you know, 2/3 of our clients are more on the 1040 individual side.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, we gotta work with you, my friend.
Yeah, we've got to
that's
get
good.
some better list segmentation, and you know, like I said, what we're doing now is working well, and we're very grateful that we are, you know, doing good things right now. But also, there's a lot of room to grow and improve on our side, you know, as of now.
So what is the secret sauce? I mean, what do you think is the reason behind your growth? Why have you lasted so long, and what makes your clients so loyal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think the majority of people, when they look at a tax service, or they look at really any financial service, but to me, I think especially taxes, because it's a financial service that, you know, everyone's going to need to address every year in one way or another, right? If they do their own, if their cousin does it or whatever, they have to address this, right? So when it comes time to make a choice, right, the majority of people have a choice to either go with somebody who's an expert, that's like a, you know, high-end CPA, somebody that they really respect their expertise, or they can go like, you know, kind of somebody that they know personally, they like, you know, maybe in their neighborhood, but maybe they don't think they're, you know, top level expertise. And so what we do is, and what makes us unique, is to combine both of those, where we have so many team members that have been doing it for more than 20 years. We have a full training program that we put people through, and, you know, we have good reviews and things like that. But then also we have, you know, accessible prices, right? We're not expensive. You know, we offer service in English and Spanish, and, you know, we're just accessible and friendly, you know, so we're always taking clients and walk-ins. It's not like you have to know somebody to, you know, to get involved. And so, you know, we just have like a kind of an interesting blend of, you know, open to everybody, but also just trying to keep a high level of service, and frankly, keep getting better every day, you know, not being satisfied with, you know, good enough is not good enough.
When you're dealing with multiple thousands of clients, and I know this because we were dealing with like 23,000 clients when I was in our tax firm,
Yeah.
Maintaining operation flow is a big deal. And you're telling me you did this with 22 employees, and you've got, I'm just kind of extrapolating from the numbers that you've already shared, about 4,000 or 5,000 clients. Is that about right? Then
quite a bit more than that, thank God.
Okay. Well, so you must have some operational secret sauce. How do you do that?
You know, honestly, my dad is really the operations. You know, I guess you would say. I don't know if he. Yeah, I don't know if he's a full guru. He's just like, you know, with. I kind of think of it in a sort of way like tortoise and the hare. You know, where if you keep moving forward and getting a little bit better every day.
Amen.
And that's the way my dad is, you know, as far as like you mentioned the off season, right? So we have a saying that, you know, the off season is where champions are made. And so it's whatever that you do in the off season is going to determine, what your performance is in the tax season. So everybody that we've ever had be involved year round, they've always become the top person in that office. They've always had the strongest bond with clients. And so whether, my dad is like, replacing ink cartridges or building shelving, or it's just all those little things. And, everybody else starts to do that too. You start to do that as well because you see him setting that example. And so I think that's a big part of it. But also, you guys, what we've done recently, which has really worked out well for us, is we built our own internal software where we keep track not just of tax returns, because that was always something that we had track of, but what are people doing with their time in between tax returns, or if they're not specifically working on a tax return. So that's actually been a big part of our recent growth of the past couple of years, is doing a better job of seeing how are we utilizing our time and how can we use our time in ways that get us more clients.
Indeed, that's good. So how do the Tax Pro Marketer services that we've been providing, how have they fit into your growth mix and your overall marketing strategy for your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I think the best thing about the Tax Pro Marketer, setup is the team that's involved. That you've put together. I don't think the team came together by accident. And I know from building out teams that it involves, leading that team, setting the culture, and everybody from Christian, Catherine, everybody on the team is so responsive. And what I like about Tax Pro Marketer, as far as our situation, which I think a lot of tax pros will like as well, is you don't have to think a lot about it for it to be working behind the scenes. I can't count the number of times that somebody on your team has reached out to me with, some small little thing, right? That normally, again, it's those little things that add up. And so I would normally have that on my mind, like, oh, I've got to correct XYZ on the Google page, or I've got to start adding more pictures. And you start to feel all this guilt and shame because you're like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be doing this stuff, but I'm actually not doing this stuff. I'm actually not doing it. I know I should be sending emails, but I'm actually not sending emails because I'm too busy. And so what Tax Pro Marketer has been able to do is put a nice baseline of marketing activity of you're actually doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, but you're not actually doing them. So that's but then you actually see the results. As far as I love the reporting that you guys have added recently with your dashboarding and and sending those notifications, you get to see the actual results, and you're like, wow, I really am not doing that much, but I'm getting a lot more results than I was before. And so that makes it pretty easy to to pay the bill each month.
Amen. Well, let me, I want to come back to some more of your secret sauce. I do want to go into some data with you, Andy, because we've been seeing on our back end some great numbers for you. I want to frame everything that we do with Andy, and so you guys understand that this is part of a methodology, and it's not just we kind of slapdash a bunch of different things together from a marketing standpoint. Everything we do at Tax Pro Marketer, if you're a client or not, I think you might have seen us talk about this, falls under what we've built over the years, which we call the digital dominance method. And what this really means is ensuring that your practice claims, optimizes, and dominates every relevant online property, and we do it on your behalf. Again, I don't want to take a long time as a commercial for Tax Pro Marketer, but I do know that there's a lot of people who have wondered what it looks like from the perspective of a client, which is one of the reasons why we had Andy here. So what we always try to do, which is distinctive from any kind of software company, we are not like a GetNetSet or CPA Site Solutions where we just sort of slap up a website and call it good. But we're also, we're not one of these kind of coaches out there who gives you the PowerPoints and the tools and expects you to go sell, pitch. That's not how we roll either. We are a marketing agency who comes alongside a tax and accounting firm, and as Andy already said, does the heavy lifting for them, but does it in a way that it feels personal to their clients and prospects. And so we believe in the relationship journey because Google has done a lot of research on their own about how consumers and business owners are finding and engaging with professional services these days. And it's no longer the linear journey that it was just 3 or 4 years ago. There is a herky-jerky, in and out kind of journey that prospects go through, where they're touching a variety of different online marketing properties, from Google reviews to Facebook pages to the websites themselves to maps to, you know, all over the place, other forms of social media. But it generally falls through this relationship journey of awareness, engagement, conversion, and ascension. And it's just like the regular relationship journey, where, you know, awareness stage is like when people find out that you exist. You know, you go to the bar, so to speak. And then the engage, subscribe stage is when they're actually engaged. They've raised their hand, but they have not yet gone over the altar and said yes to becoming a client and being in marriage. This is where the money is made. This is actually the most important part of marketing any kind of tax and accounting firm, is this engagement stage, where a lot of people drop the ball. And they drop the ball in one of two ways. They either don't actually address it and they just go right to the proposal of marriage, or they're so hyper aggressive during the engagement stage that it turns off the sophisticated prospect. It becomes all about pitch, 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 rather than the relationship building, the value exchange that should occur in a relational journey. So that's everything that we do is oriented towards falling within this journey. And then the ascension is when a client actually engages, and then referrals come, and you know, cross-selling to other services, etc. So bringing your prospects through this kind of clear journey, getting the right ones, it requires this broader methodology and a fuller system than like a squeeze funnel or just having a website. And that's one of our main distinctives, is that we don't just put people through a squeeze funnel. We don't just send, you know, have you pay for advertising and, you know, get the lowest hanging fruit of the 10 or 15% of people that might respond to that squeeze funnel pitch, pitch, pitch. But we also cover all the other bases of search engine optimization. And we're going to show some numbers here with you, Andy, which I'm excited for you to look at. But anyway, that's the digital dominance method. Anyone who is listening to this right now, you can go to this website that we have, talktotpm.com, and you can just open up another URL in your browser. Go to talktotpm, talktotpm.com, and you'll get an online footprint analysis and also 4 free marketing tools. Now, this is just for the first 20 people that are listening to this. You can see on the page what those tools are. We've recently added these and built these out for our people. They include reputation management tools. They include some, you know, analysis tools of what's happening on your kind of the broader online ecosystem and where are the gaps. And we're going to go over this with you when you schedule and fill out the form on that page. We're going to go over this with you, whether you engage us or not. We really believe in leading with service. And so it's going to be a really valuable session for free for you. Just fill out that short form at talktotpm.com. Now, leaving that aside, let's talk about your stuff, Andy, because there's a lot that you do that I want and that we do on your behalf. Of course, some of that also, but I just want to kind of show you off a little bit. Now, this is an email marketing average open rates. It's a screenshot of a picture. The source of this is from a broader research firm that does look at a industry by industry specific open rates as of May 2020. The overall average is like 16%, as you can see, and accountants get a little bit higher because, generally speaking, when things relate to your money, as a lot of accountants correspond to, you get that 19%. People are a little bit more interested than maybe just average. But with Andy and his business, what we're seeing is over 40% open rates from the emails that he is doing and that we're doing on his behalf. And so this is one that I think went out in April of this year, 41% open rate. This one was later in that stage, 42.5% open rate. And talk about the email marketing, Andy, and talk about kind of what that has meant for your business, whether it's the stuff that we produce on your behalf or the things that you are doing, because you're augmenting it as well, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things about your guys' model is, that when you can layer on your own efforts on top of that solid base, right?
Hmm.
That's when you start really getting that accelerated, response. And so I think the email marketing, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably people on this call right now that are thinking, oh yeah, email marketing, like I should be doing that. I know that that's important, or I know that it's effective for other people, but let's just, sometimes you just got to be honest with yourself, right? Like, is it actually happening consistently?
Right.
Right? Like, and if so, how much time are you actually spending on doing it? Right? Because I've done a lot of email marketing myself, and it's very time intensive. Like, you have to do a good job and to respect people's inbox. You actually have to, put a lot of time into it. It's one of those things that's a lot harder than it looks. And so
Hmm.
when you have, I think it's like 5 emails like per week to different segments of the list that are ready to go, where you can just go in, you can edit them, you can review them, you can add in different things or customize them. I mean, it just makes it tremendously easier for it to actually happen. Like if you're
Hmm.
more interested in like, hey, I want to make sure I do every single thing in my business myself. But once you get to multiple locations, you got thousands of clients, or you want to get to that point, you're going to have to get help along the way. And so if you have something that can make it way easier to do, an effective activity, well, that's kind of what the email marketing's been to us. And also I think what a lot of people underestimate is, yes, we all get a lot of emails, right? So there is an overload of email. So why is that? Because it's incredibly effective. Like that's why it's so when you have stuff that you're actually sending that's valuable, and as a tax professional, people actually care what we say in a lot of cases. They're actually pretty positive about it. Occasionally you'll get somebody unsubscribing, or you'll get, somebody like, stop, don't ever send me an email anymore, but they can unsubscribe very easily. And 70, probably 80% of the responses are, wow, thanks so much. Really appreciate you guys putting the time into this. I've forwarded this email to several other people, and or those type of complimentary things. And so I like forwarding those type of emails to our team because, sometimes you underestimate how effective email marketing can be, but it's like, it's gold star. It's the best.
And that's stuff that you have not had to put any effort into making yourself. I mean, these
Well,
are
that's what I'm
things that
saying. That's the best part of
yeah.
it is I don't actually do it. I just like that's a key part of the formula, right? Is you
Yeah.
don't, yeah. I mean, if I cut my time, you guys, down from, and again, too, like for a multi-location, or a lot of people that are on this call, right, is they're already overly busy, right? We're already overly busy. So if I cut my time for sending an effective, good email that actually respects somebody's inbox, if I cut that from 3 hours a week to 15 minutes, and I'm being able to get a very positive response, and your emails a lot of times are better than the emails that I would have written. So I mean, how much is that worth, right? You're actually doing it instead of just carrying around guilt and shame, like, oh, you know what, I should be doing email marketing, and I know I should be doing that, but you ain't doing it. So, and so what's the pathway to actually get it done? It's
Amen.
either you dedicate more time, more legwork for yourself, or you guys, present another option that makes it quite a bit, easier and faster.
That's great. Thank you. So let's dive into the data and what we've seen. I've got some slides here, but I'm actually not as smart about this stuff as Christian Jones, our director of search marketing, who is also on this with us. Say hello, Christian.
Hey guys.
So Christian is the architect behind our search engine optimization and even a lot of the components of our advertising. Christian, why don't you? I've got a slide here on the screen that you can just talk through, or if you want, I can just like pull up his live report. What would you rather?
No, let's start here, Nate. So what we're looking at here, guys, is a report that one of a few that Andy gets that represents his 4 locations he has around Los Angeles. And the data we're pulling in is from Google My Business. So if you don't know what Google My Business is, the easiest way to understand the significance of that platform is that's where you get Google reviews. If you've ever called a business that shows up on the map within a Google search, right, like a restaurant or a plumber or an accountant, all of that data is tracked. And that's the data we're pulling into this report. So this is for 4 locations from January 10th of this year to April 9th of this year. So 4-month view. And a little more on this report, just, you know, context that what you're looking at. In that 4 months is, you know, going to be the hard data, the larger number under all of these little categories, right? So if you want to start at the top left, from January to April, he had 73,958 total search impressions. However, the number beneath it is a same time frame going backwards, you know, percentage growth. So from January moving back 4 months, you know, what's the change? We want to look for change. We want to find the delta and then try and piece together, hey, this is working, right? And so there's a lot we do with Google My Business in particular. It is a part of our overall, you know, scheme for SEO. But if you haven't gathered already, Andy's numbers are pretty crazy good. Disclaimer, not all of our clients are, you know, cranking out these numbers, but these numbers for Andy also weren't really the case when we first started working with him. There's been a ton of growth from the stuff that we're doing on Google. So I can get into the specifics of tactics, but Nate, redirect me if you want. But Andy, one thing I've been thinking about, because you and I have talked about this data before, we have clients that we actually get really good phone call numbers for. Maybe the scale is different, maybe the market is different, but I'm curious for you, as we're talking process and operations and multi-location, how do you guys handle 3,100 organic phone calls in 4 months? How are you set up in your kind of front door to your sales process? Is that easy? What have you guys put in place to handle that? Has that stretched you guys? Can you speak?
Right, because that averages I think about 780 some odd phone calls. I don't know exactly per location and certain. Anyway, go on, Andy.
Yeah, it was this year was you know, it was definitely a stretching experience since I don't personally work like in the offices to hear those phones like just ringing off the hook constantly.
Right. Right.
You know, I have a little bit of a different perspective, but I do know that adding so a lot of tax pros is we look at adding admin staff, right, or non-tax preparer staff. And it's always a concern about costs, right? Because you don't want to pay out more in cost than, you know, you don't want to like lose money, right? So to speak, right? So what causes you to have utilization of your admin staff is inbound calls, right? Because you're normally not going to, you're not going to have like tax people naturally we're not like salespeople, like where you're going to put somebody on a phone, right? They're going to be like smiling and dialing and calling, right? So it's all about inbound traffic. And this year, I mean, we had more dedicated admin staff where, you know, your job is just to handle these calls, handle these emails especially for the team leader of the office, but being able to actually pay those people and pay them well, right? And keep them busy and keep them occupied and productive. That only comes from having all these calls coming in, right? Because we'd always rather be more busy than less busy, right? You'd rather have more calls than less calls. And so, you know, credit to our admin team, like for instance, Janet, our main admin in our West LA office, which is my office that I mostly work directly with, is I mean, she stepped up so huge this year. I mean, and just was like so huge for us dealing with all these stimulus calls and PPP and everything else. So then then these tax pros that are on this call, they know, you know, you can handle as busy as you can get, but you don't want to pay people to sit there and do nothing. So when you add admin staff, having the marketing side of it, generating inbound, you know, especially with Google search, you know, I think Christian, like I mentioned, I was trying to give you a little advertisement and Nate said, you know, but maybe this is a more appropriate time, but the,
no, you can layer it on now. I've got the mic now. Nate's gone. Just come on.
I mean,
shower me.
I'm still here, Christian.
I mean, Google My Business, that's like the secret weapon, man. People don't realize like the Google My Business is like the because if everybody likes to Google themselves, you know what I mean? So like if you like Google your business, like go on your Google business and, you see the little, I think Christian calls it the snack pack, right? Where it's like, if you're on that first maps view, right? Like I'm pretty sure we're like number 1 or number 2 for like every one of our locations. And again, like I know enough from marketing myself, like if that was my job, like I could probably figure out somehow to do something comparable to like what you're doing, but I'd rather just pay you guys to do it and just get all the calls. And then when I Google our business in that area, I know everybody that's Googling tax preparation 91016 or whatever it is, right, is right there. And your Google, my business profile is actually optimized and actually has correct information. I mean, and I should point out was for these numbers, right? I didn't do anything for this. I did absolutely, this has really nothing to do with us other than taking care of clients that do call us. That's all we want to do anyways. And so I didn't do any of this. You guys did all this. And as long as we take care of the clients, that's all we need to do. And that's actually what most tax pros want to have happen.
Yeah.
And let me jump in to say that the great thing about search related traffic vis-a-vis advertising traffic is that there's a trust factor when somebody finds you in an organic search result versus knowing that you paid to play and be in there. And there's value in having one of the ads. The data shows that it's about like 20% of the clicks go to the actual ads. That there's value there. But when you're found organically, there's also, people are savvy enough now to know that those are the real businesses. Those are the ones that can handle the sophisticated searcher, the sophisticated client. You're not just getting the tire kickers, you're getting the kind of client that isn't just desperate and the lowest hanging fruit, and you're not putting them through this squeeze process. They're actually kicking your tires a little bit, getting on your email list, getting nurtured a little bit, and then you can seal the deal and harvest when they're ready. And that's what we see when our clients actually have a few months under their belt and let the search engine optimization do its magic.
And plus, I mean, in our business, right, is that people want to work with, they want to find their own solution, right? They want to feel like they found, then they chose the person that they work with. So
yes,
they want to hire a busy person. So like when our phones are ringing off the hooks, it's not that we don't care if you become a client, but we're just trying to address whatever you're calling for and build good rapport with you and do what we need to do on a human level. We don't need to try to sell you to do anything because there's 3 more calls that are going to come in right after that. So it's all good. Like whatever you decide, right? If you go here or you go there or what, as long as you're getting to take care of, that's what matters. And so whatever's a good fit for you, if you want to stop by, if you want to not stop by, like everything is okay when you have enough flow of people that are saying, hey, I found you on this, or I found you on that, or I was referred. And so that's essentially what you guys have, have done for the business.
I love it. I love it. And hey, Nate, this will maybe highlight part of what you just said, or do you want to move on?
No, that's fine. Go on.
Can you jump back to the last slide for a sec?
Yeah.
Thanks. There we go. So just for those of you that may not know all of this data, if you haven't already, just let me point this out before I tell you what I was going to tell you. Column number 4 is probably going to be the one you want to look at the most if you haven't already been staring at it long enough to find phone calls. Andy had 468% increase in phone calls from 4 months moving backwards from January to April. And so that's what happens in busy season for people that do show up in position 1. And we just exited a tax season that was very peculiar and had a lot of irregularities, and obviously the deadline getting extended. And who's to say we're not going to run right back into that in a few months? I think that's probable. It may not. We might be back on regular, scheduled programming, but when you are in that position and you give us time to get you onto page 1, when chaos comes and people are looking for the port in the storm, you get 500% increase in phone calls because everyone wants help. Everyone is now interested in not using a software. As much as even like Super Bowl commercials and the trend that was moving towards software, you have 1 year like this, and now I actually need a human. Now I actually need to look someone up. And so anyways, I just wanted to point out column 4, because that's the most fun, but something that you might not know what this means is column number 1. Column number 1 are the search impressions. So search impression is not a phone call. It's not an action being taken, but there are 2 different search impressions that are really funneling into this overall number, discovery and direct. And so for Andy, thought I'd point this out, most of his impressions are coming from discovery. Direct searches are people who know Pronto Tax, right? You type in Pronto Tax, you come across his Google My Business page, that's a direct search impression. If you search tax prep, nothing to do with Andy's business name, nothing to do with anything related to his company, and he shows up, that's discovery. If you're going to do this on your own, or you're going to have anyone help you with your online marketing, what Nate's been talking about with email is massively important. The follow-up is huge. How your website's designed is huge. What are the actions that you ask people to take once they find you and they're on your website? However, getting visible to begin with is just kind of like square one. And so you want to see the vast majority of your discovery, or rather your overall impressions, coming from discovery searches, which simply means you show up for keywords that have nothing to do with your business: accountant, tax prep, tax service. And that's where we've really been pushing Andy forward. Obviously, you can see there's a lot of overall impressions coming in this 4-month segment from discovery. That's success for us. That's what leads to all the things downstream. And Andy, let's toot your horn a little bit. Again, I mentioned this. We get people who get discovered. They have a website, like Nate says, they take this nonlinear journey. Eventually they call, and we're giving them at bats more or less, and there's no one there at the plate with a bat to swing. You guys actually have people who are ready to take those calls, and you're doing a great job. You might not be doing perfect, but you're getting a high B or an A in our book for what you're doing, simply because you are prepared for that influx when it comes. You're really well positioned for what we come across from prospects, and even sometimes from existing clients. And again, the scale is different. It just depends. But I wanted to point out the phone calls, discovery, and anything else, Andy, you want to say. You don't have to, great. But Nate, if not, we can skip around.
Yeah.
I just know from being a tax pro myself that just emphasizing the fact of how little we actually did to get these numbers is important, because you always think, right, of like, whatever you see these type of results and reports, and you're like, well, how much work am I really going to have to do to like actually have it happen? And so I think that part of it is important to us. And I know the rest of the team, like my dad and Jesse and some of our other top managers, they really appreciate being able to focus on serving our clients. As opposed to some of the marketing stuff, that you guys are handling. So I think that's an important kind of, re-emphasis point, so to speak.
Yeah. I love it. Nate, I think that next slide had to do with web analytics, because that's something totally different. Yeah. So this is totally different. Go ahead. You want to frame the question?
I have no idea what this is, Christian.
Yeah. This is website traffic in a 30-day period. So this is from April as well, that data that we pulled from the last slide. This was sessions and page views in, again, a 30-day period from March to April. And it's another part of the equation. And so this is just the hard data. If you're even just loosely familiar with what's normal in the tax and accounting space in terms of web traffic, these numbers are very, very good. And again, he was on page 1. He was positioned to acquire that traffic. And Andy worked with us to put out what was a COVID-19 related pop-up that also helped get people engaged with his email services. That's one of our calls to action that leads into the stuff that we've already talked about. But all that to say, like, the numbers we were just looking at, that's just from one profile. Now, this is from his actual website and the web traffic and the sessions and page views he's had. So if you're skeptical at all that you can, obviously, Los Angeles, 4 locations, scale could be different, but growth percentage, and actually, anecdotally, we have a lot of clients. We just had a client this morning call us in Alabama who, for the last 3 years, year over year, has grown 15% each year. Each year, his business bottom line growth has been 15%, and 30 to 40% of all of his new clients are from online searches, and they audit that. You know, they have like an onboarding questionnaire that they ask. And so another guy from Chattanooga who doubled his business in his first year with us. We don't promise that, but the stuff we're looking at here is not abnormal if you start to get on page 1 of Google. So the stuff that Andy trusts us to do is to basically, set him up for those sales calls. And when we do that, when you get on page 1, you will get calls, you will get traffic, and we kind of take it from there. And he just has to review the emails and let us more or less be the marketing department.
So I do want to just point this out. I do want to go back to having Andy speak a little bit more about the specifics of his business. This has been a great commercial for us, and I'm glad about
welcome.
that, obviously. But I do want to just point out those tools. It says taxproleads.com and also talktotpm.com. I'm going to show you the little man behind the curtain. They both go to the same spot, so it doesn't really matter which one of those two you go to. So just either one. Talk to TPM or taxproleads.com. And you'll get an application there. You can apply for a free lead flow session. We're going to do a customized analysis of your online marketplace and your practice, custom tailored. We're going to kind of take a look at things and make sure that you are doing things properly, that you've got all the bases covered for your different, like Bing, Apple Maps, Yelp, Google My Business, your website, your kind of conversion data, the email marketing. We're going to look at all that stuff to make sure that you're doing it right. So again, a custom tailored plan. And we've got these 4 big tools that for the first 20 people who are listening to this can apply, will get. So again, that's at taxproleads.com or talktotpm.com. Either one of those works. Now, Andy, before we kind of let you go, I'd love to know, kind of like dreamcasting, where are you guys going next? What is the Andy Frye world domination master plan?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually something I've been thinking about a lot this year, between some of the education we do for other tax professionals, as well as our brick and mortar office locations, going well and growing is, what is the next step? And, I think the physical location expansion is kind of in an interesting place, right? Because, we have more and more people that are, especially with, the whole situation this year, right, where they're not really coming into the office, as much, especially in some of our office locations that are in a little more affluent areas. Mm-hmm. And so, what does expansion look like as far as like to me, Nate, it really goes to the professional development of team members. So to me, it's like we need to add more people that we can build up into being like a mini Kent or a mini Jesse or a mini Cynthia. And so I think it's at a person-to-person level, and we're finally at a point where we have the training in a good place. We have our actual monitoring our business metrics in a much better place. And also we just have better marketing as far as demand for the services. Like right now we have too much demand relative to the employees that we have, so I think building being able to hire more people, especially in this down economy, is something that, that we, I feel like that's my responsibility. I always thought, if you're given much, much is expected of you, and so for everything that, my dad did and my uncle did and Bertha and Raina and all kind of the longtime employees that really built up the business, it's up to us to provide more opportunities to newer people, to provide better opportunities for the existing people. So a lot of what I look at is what's the next step for every one of our team members? And do we have a pathway where because a lot of times what happens in the tax business, and this, is that you build your tax professionals, your team members up to a certain point, right? And then they hit a ceiling, where it's they're not the owner, so we've actually had more people kind of being able to have ownership interests, be able to have, that next step. What's that next step for that talented tax professional that already has a really good relationships with a few hundred clients, right? They already have a solid, way to earn a good living for them. But, like, especially in the Latino community, Nate, is like, this is a whole new generation. Like, this is like, like it's time for that community and for our team members, like, to be business owners, to be, starting their own locations, to be able to have a share of what they do of mentoring other people. So it's everything that I want to do is about, training and empowering those team members to just, keep growing their earnings and keep serving the clients.
That's great. Well, this is awesome. We're going to move to the Q&A section now. I'm going to hit pause on the recording.